I'm starting to understand more about the 75 hard program now. Like, what's the point? Why would anyone do this? And I think it's really like to just not test yourself, but I know he says it's a mental toughness program and stuff, but maybe even like find yourself, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you do a lot of that there, because you're the big thing is the two workouts have to be, at certain periods apart in
Right.
time. So you have to set aside, you have to plan that time out. And it's I mean, you've been doing that. I mean, you've probably pretty much been doing 75 hard.
Yeah, I was just
I
thinking,
mean,
hey,
I mean,
you
that's
should have
probably
done
why.
the dumb program.
Yeah, you'd probably be done by now.
Right.
So,
Hey, welcome. Welcome everyone coming in.
yeah, good evening, guys. It's a mugly evening out, very muggy out. We've got a great call dialed up tonight. We'll let some folks join in here, and um, we would certainly ask for a share on the socials. Let folks know what we talked about tonight, and if it was any value to you, we ask that you share the alliance, invite some friends into it, and yeah, we're pumped for tonight's topic. And I saw some people too that were pretty excited online. I think the topic of hormones is, for a lot of people, it's elusive. A lot of people don't know a lot about hormones, including myself. I'm not a hormone expert by any means, and I am always fascinated with, you know, how you can utilize these types of things to your advantage, or they may be to your disadvantage. And so Jesse's going to talk about how to optimize hormone levels tonight, and to use them to our advantage. And guys, in our push right now, and talking about you know being the best we can be in business, being the best we can be physically, and being fit. Um, Having the optimal energy levels, the optimal hormone levels are going to help us in being fit and being strong and being active. And so Jesse's going to talk about that tonight. So share it with a friend. And without further ado, Jesse, it is all yours, my friend.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us today, guys. I want to respect your time and dive right into this. So, if you enjoy tonight's content and you're like, I want to go even deeper into this, I'm going to be speaking at a strength and conditioning fitness summit in Plainfield, Indiana. So, and I'll be going a little bit longer, well, a lot longer on this particular topic. So, if this is something that you guys kind of geek out on, just text me and I can tell you more information about the summit. There'll also be other PhDs, renowned strength coaches from all over that are speaking at that summit as well. So let's dive in. So first of all, what is a hormone? Let's kind of define what it is. It's a regulatory substance produced in an organism and transported into tissues, fluids such as the blood, to, this is a key word, to stimulate specific cells or tissues into action. So hormones will stimulate, but they're not going to necessarily be the end decision makers. We are the end decision makers when a lot of this comes to hormones. So it's very, very important. So if you're stimulated to do something, that doesn't mean that you're 100% going to do it. Or if you're not stimulated to do something, that doesn't mean that you're not going to necessarily do it. So hormones don't necessarily mess with our free will. So let me kind of get into some things that hormones will not do for you if you optimize your hormones. Because I hear a lot of excuses around hormones. I've had a battle with very low testosterone levels. That's going to be something we talk about. So I really want to debunk some of the excuses and some of the things that hormones just aren't going to do for you, no matter whether they're optimized or not. Hormones are not going to make you moody, negative, or irritable. Now, having low T, was I lethargic? Yes. Was I tired a little bit? Yes. Did I have some muscle weakness? I did. Was there issues with sexual health? Yes. But that didn't make me be moody, negative, or irritable. Those are matters of the soul, matters of the heart. They're not matters of hormones. They don't make you spontaneously just put on energy or put on muscle tissues. There are many men that have testosterone that is very, very high, and they have very low muscle tissue because they're stimulated to put on muscle. They're primed to put on muscle, but they're not doing the work, so therefore they don't. Balancing your hormones or optimizing your hormones will not fix your marriage, will not increase your faith, it will not increase your confidence, and it's not going to help you deal with childhood trauma or psychological issues. So it's really important for us to understand this. So what will they do? Well, what hormones will do is they will regulate homeostasis, so such as blood pressure, water balance, blood sugar, and metabolism. Basically, and remember, metabolism, when we hear metabolism, we think, oh, calories, or if I have a high metabolism, I'm naturally just genetically lean. If I have a low metabolism, I just easily put on body fat. No, metabolism is simply processes that maintain life. Okay, so hormones can help regulate those processes that maintain life. So it's important that we have our hormones optimized if we want to maintain a life that typically we want to live, that we want to flourish in. So hormones will regulate growth and development. Okay, so it is hormonally determined how tall you are. It is hormonally determined some of your bone structure. Hormones will regulate sexual function and reproduction. Sometimes, or not sometimes, but we will eventually go through seasons of life where we are no longer, on the female side, able to reproduce because certain hormones are no longer present within the body. Hormones can regulate our sleep and wake cycle, and hormones can regulate our energy. So if you're listening in right now, you might be like, well, how do I know? Maybe I don't know if my hormones are optimized, or because we're going to talk about ways to optimize 3 specific hormones here in a second. So how do you know? Well, first is your symptoms. If you have great libido, great sexual health, you're vibrant, you're getting your workouts in, okay, well, then you don't really have hormonal symptoms of anything. If you don't have any issues with brain fog, or man, sometimes I just kind of forget stuff, or my brain just seems to be a little bit foggy, or man, I'm just kind of tired sometimes. I never used to be this way, but now I am. Having a tough time falling asleep, that could be a symptom of imbalanced hormones. If you ever just feel like, man, I just feel more like negative, I'm down, I've never used to be like this, I'm irritable, that could be an issue with your serotonin. Okay, so that's how you kind of know if you have some of these symptoms. Now, if you wanted to find out irrefutably, you can go to any lab test now. You can contact me. I work with a hormone specialist that can run your blood work and tell you. But really, you don't need blood work, in my opinion, if you're looking at the symptoms. If you have symptoms of low T, or you have symptoms of low serotonin, or you have symptoms of high cortisol, typically the blood work is going to follow that. Not necessarily always, okay? Because again, if it's a matter of the heart or the soul, hormones aren't going to help you. But you can easily get these things tested. It's very inexpensive to do. But again, if you want to optimize these naturally and you want to kind of tune in and lean in more to this conversation, those are some of the symptoms that you would have. So brain fog, low energy, lethargy, muscle weakness, kind of feelings of just negativity when you never used to be that way, decreased libido, and so forth. All right, Michael, can you think of anything before? Because I want to move right into optimization and give our listeners something to kind of walk away from. Is there anything that maybe didn't make sense or that you want me to kind of hyper focus in on there? Oh, Michael, you're muted.
Sorry, there we go. When you talk about identifying if you're low in certain areas, what is the quickest or what's the best way for someone to, once they find out or they think that they're low and they get tested, do these places that test, once they find that out, do they easily prescribe and get you fixed quickly? Is it an easy process to do that?
Gosh, that's a fantastic question. That's a whole seminar in itself. It depends on the clinic you're going into. So, like any lab tests now, they're throughout the United States. They're just going to give you the data. They don't do any prescriptive or anything like that. They're just like, here you go. Then, if that data is out of range and you're symptomatic, then you would have to be an advocate for yourself and go find a women's clinic or a men's clinic or a hormone replacement clinic. And they're just not all created equal. So you kind of got to do a lot of legwork, particularly in this area of hormones, because it's fairly new. A lot of your primary care physicians are going to be clueless. They're not going to know. They're going to send you to an endocrinologist. An endocrinologist is going to charge you thousands versus what a good HRT clinic would do. So the next step from there is, if the symptoms are pretty bad, like they were with me, is to find a good HRT clinic. I have an affiliation with an HRT clinic here locally in Indiana. So if anyone wants to go that route, there's Dr. D. Bonney. He's here locally in Indiana. He's someone I think that does it right. But there's more and more of these clinics that are popping up. So you really just kind of got to do your research, because they tend to treat you just as a number. Hey, here's your hormone package, get into the next one. And they tend to just manage on the paper based off the blood work. That's not what a good HRT practitioner will do. A good HRT practitioner is going to manage off the symptoms, not some range that came out in the 1920s. So that's probably the first thing that I would do, is I would ask the HRT doctors, hey, do you manage off the symptoms or do you manage off the blood work?
That's a great question. And a great question to ask. There's another one on here, Jesse, from Brian. He says, is there a potential hormonal cause for early morning stomach issues?
There's not a hormonal issue that comes to mind, but we are going to talk about serotonin and gut health here in a second. So yeah, that could be prevalent there. So there's literally hundreds of hormones in the body. I'm going to talk about the top three that I think kind of give you guys the most bang for your buck, and how to optimize these top three. So we're going to talk about serotonin. Serotonin regulates how we feel or perceive pain. Serotonin is made in the gut. So if we have poor gut health, we're going to typically have lower serotonin. Serotonin helps with wound healing, blood clotting. It regulates sleep, which is going to be super important here in a bit. It also plays a role in encouraging optimism, feelings of well-being. So some people label serotonin the happy hormone. Okay, so if you used to kind of have, I don't know, just a different outlook on life, a little bit more energy, a little more pep in your step, and that's kind of changed, that could be a symptom of your serotonin kind of dipping. We're going to talk about cortisol. Cortisol's role in the body is it's your stress hormone. So it's whenever we have high stress, the body's going to naturally release cortisol to deal with that stress. It regulates blood sugar, reduces inflammation. So good if you're working out. Helps metabolize glucose and convert protein into glucose if needed. And it contributes as an immune system builder. So a lot of benefits to cortisol. However, we're going to talk about why we really want to take a closer look at this hormone here in a second. And then we are going to discuss testosterone, how to optimize testosterone. Interestingly enough, the data on testosterone is they're now finding, and we don't know why. We don't know what the cause is for this, but we're finding that young people, 20, even 30-year-olds, are having symptoms and being diagnosed with pretty low testosterone compared to like 60 years ago. Again, we don't know why a 20-year-old would be making, a tenth less testosterone than a 20-year-old 80, 60, 70 years ago. But that's some of the literature is starting to find that. So it's very odd, could be cellular depletion, what's in our food. They haven't really been able to tell why this is happening. But I think this is also why you're seeing a lot more of low T centers come up, both for men and women. I know Dr. Bonney, who I referenced earlier, he's 50-50. He runs an HRT clinic. They deal with other hormones than just testosterone, but he's putting now more females on testosterone replacement therapy than he ever has before. So something is definitely going on, maybe nutritionally, maybe with our food supply, that is impacting this hormone, which is why we want to talk about some natural ways to optimize it. All right, so let's talk about balancing or optimizing these hormones. The biggest, by far, issue that we have in today's modern society is we have a gross overstimulation of our sympathetic nervous system. So you have your sympathetic nervous system, that's your fight response. So remember we talked about cortisol kind of being the response to stress. Sympathetic nervous system is you're revved up, your pupils are dilated, you're ready to go hunt for some food. You're amped, okay? You're alert. Your parasympathetic nervous system, remember we talked about hormones, they're great regulators, their job is to regulate. So the parasympathetic nervous system is to come in and calm you down, okay? So you're agitated, you just fought, you caught the water buffalo, then the parasympathetic nervous system comes in and it calms you down. If you've ever been in a near car accident, how do you feel? You're amped, you almost can't control it, your heart's going nuts. You really can't control yourself. Well, after a while, you start to get nice and tired, kind of calm, cool. You might even take a nap. That's your parasympathetic nervous system doing its job. Right now, we have a gigantic imbalance in this because of stress. So we're going to talk about stress management. And to do that, we need to know the 4 different types of stress. First is your basic stress. This is a stress that your grandma and grandpa had, mom and dad had, that basically all humans live with. Family, job, kids, putting food and water on the table. It's day-to-day, dealing with people. Okay. Your basic stress is going to be about 30% of your stress capacity. Now, if you're, kind of dealing like with poor finances or some things of that nature that are maybe not as basic, maybe it could be up to 40 or 50% of your stress handling capability. Okay, but we all have basic stress. So that's right around 30%. Then we have what's called chosen stress. And your body doesn't see, I'm going to read some of the chosen stresses, and a lot of you are going to be like, well, wait a minute. Those are good things. Yes, your body doesn't understand the difference between good and bad stress. It just understands stress. That's it. Okay. So chosen stress would be exercise, caffeine consumption, a broken relationship, or a bad relationship with, say, your spouse would be a chosen stressor, not dealing or not fixing that. Sports, volunteer work, getting a second job, having a side hustle, alcohol intake, inflammatory food intake. All of those are stresses that we choose, and some bring us great joy. I love volunteering. But you also, and some of you may be familiar with someone that spreads themselves so thin volunteering that it becomes a massive stressor in a bad way to them. Chosen stresses probably are about another 20 to 30%. Okay. Then next we have unaware stress. So these are stresses that we don't really know that we have, that we're doing them to ourselves, but we don't know that they exist. Unaware stresses could be a poor attitude where you don't know you have a poor attitude. How we respond to situations, we might just be real type A, real reactive, that would be an unaware stress. Ego, not uncovering emotional things that maybe we're not even aware of. So like therapy is really good at helping us deal with unaware stress or bringing top of mind stress that we didn't even know it existed. A lot of times people have anxiety attacks out of nowhere. Before I was into therapy, 2012, I had an anxiety attack. I had no idea where it came from. I was on my way to eat sushi with my wife. It was a joyful day. We just crushed the workout. We were going to meet people for sushi. And next thing you know, I'm in the ER because I'm thinking I'm having a heart attack. That was actually an anxiety attack. So therapy helped me to become aware of that stress. So if you ever have anxiety attacks, that's probably an indication that you have some stresses that you just are not aware of yet. Then lastly, and this is newer, we have informational stress. Informational stress is distractions. It's social media. It's hey, can you believe Trump did this or whatever? Biden did that. It's texts, it's emails, it's basically information that's being shared at a very, very, very high rate compared to what our human brains are used to. If you look at information is probably 100 times higher and more accessible than it was to our grandparents. Our grandparents, I mean, they had to be on a phone with a cord, literally to transfer information from one person to another, or like a fax machine. So, informational stress. Leaving stress or the sympathetic nervous system unbalanced like this is going to kill your sleep. It's going to reduce your serotonin. It's going to increase your cortisol. Anytime cortisol is abnormally high or elevated for long periods of time, not acutely, but chronically, testosterone will be lower. So if you want to optimize your hormones, all three of them, you want to cut your stress down by 30%. I'll share with you how I'm doing it because I have a lot of chosen stresses in my life right now that I'm choosing them, but they're high stressors. So yours might be different. How you cut stress out might be different than how I'm choosing to cut stress out. But your guys' stress, unless you're just living vibrantly, you're strong as an ox, your libido's great, no brain fog, I'm guessing you probably wouldn't be on this call if that were the case. You got to cut your stress 30%. I did it by eliminating certain things on technology. I just don't do certain things on technology. Kind of sucks because we talked about your chosen stresses, some of them being good things. Okay. I had to kind of give up some good things because they're stress, and it kind of sucks, but stress is stress. In my emotional well-being is more important than some of the good things that I had to put aside. Some of you might be like, man, I just volunteer too much. Man, I've got to not volunteer in just one additional area. That would be a way to release stress. Not saying to do that. Maybe it's that second job. Maybe you don't really need that money from that second job anymore, so you release that stress. Okay, whatever it might be, alcohol intake. I would encourage you to eliminate stress in that chosen area. If you're a runner and you're in a high stress period right now, I definitely would say don't running, but maybe you take your mileage from 50 miles a week down to 30. That will immensely reduce your stress. Okay. Second,
Jesse, quick question for you.
Yep.
You mentioned running there, and I'm curious with weight training and cardiovascular workouts in general, is that the same thing? If someone's weightlifting 5 days a week, should you go to 3, or how does that work?
Great question. So the act of cardiovascular activity, great for the heart, great for cholesterol, all those things. The repetitiveness of cardiovascular activity tends to produce a little bit higher cortisol, or a little bit higher stress response than resistance training. Another caveat that you have is resistance training is actually going to acutely increase testosterone, where cardiovascular activity will not. Okay. I definitely wouldn't encourage anyone to give up exercise. That's asinine.
Yeah.
But if I'm kind of really an exercise enthusiast or whatever, and I'm dealing with high stress, I'm probably going to reduce cardiovascular activity, but repetitive cardiovascular activity before resistance training activity.
Perfect.
Yeah, great question. Okay, therapy. Guys, I'm a big believer in therapy because it will help you with your unaware stress. Some of you might be aware, like, hey, I've got some things that I'm dealing with. I've not talked to a professional to deal with them. Guys, talk to a coach, talk to a therapist. Big, huge believer in that. And I'll just leave it at that. But they will help you become aware of some of your unaware stresses. Saying no, just saying no and having tighter boundaries will reduce your stress. Walks in nature. We tend to do really good having a morning routine that's peaceful. a lot of times we'll read our Bible, we'll get up early, we'll sit in peace and calm. We're like, oh, my morning time is awesome. That's great. Your body needs that parasympathetic nervous system engagement throughout the entire day. Because the second you finish your reading and whatnot, what happens? You start adding stress to the body. You start drinking coffee. You hit your workouts. You change your kids' diapers. Take your kids to school. Then you're at their ice hockey tournaments. Then it's like, who's getting lunch? Who's getting dinner? What are we having? Then it's the phone, and you're in your group chats, and you're talking to friends and all of that. When is your parasympathetic nervous system engaging? That can be as simple as you're at your kid's baseball game. You happen to be a little bit early. He's out there doing the thing with the coach, and you go for a walk around nature or the parking lot. You leave your phone at the bleachers, and you just literally go for a 7-minute walk. Really light. I'm not talking about doing cardio here. Just a light walk. So incorporating walks, particularly in nature, that's also good for your gut health, by the way. Sitting in silence. And a great stress reducer, having sex. So if you're married, that might be something that you want to prioritize. Doesn't sound very romantic, but that will help as far as with stress. All right, number 2. So first action item is finding a way to cut your stress down to 30%. And that's probably just getting you to 100% of capacity. Because most of us are running way over capacity. Why? Because we have way more stress nowadays than existed in our world just even 10, 15 years ago. Way more stress. Number 2, prioritizing sleep. Sleep is the ball game. If you are not prioritizing sleep, people will say, I sleep for 3 hours and it's hardcore. But these are the same folks that are dealing with all of these stress issues, dealing with hormonal issues. Sleep, if it's between a workout and sleep, I would prioritize the sleep. I'd cut the workout down and to try to prioritize the sleep. I'd try to do both, but I'd prioritize the sleep. We could do an entire seminar, guys, just on the importance of sleep. I do dive into it a little bit more at the summit this weekend, but just take me at the word here. Sleep. 6 to 8 hours is typically what you're going to need for that deep REM sleep and restorative sleep. That's a general range, but I can promise you it's not 5 hours or 4 hours. Your body, that is your recovery. And then third, and this goes back to what Michael was asking, is resistance training that prioritize compound lifts. Now, the beauty of that, compound lifts would be a squat and a deadlift. So you're kind of your functional movements that you have to do anyway. So every time you get up off the toilet, you're doing a squat. Every time you pick up your grandson or your own son or daughter, you're doing a deadlift. So they're things that you have to do, whether your chiropractor tells you they're good for your back or not. They're things that you must do in life. So we might as well do them correctly. We might as well strengthen ourselves because there's something that we have to do the rest of our life to avoid being in a nursing home. The beauty of, oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say something, man, just to back you up on this. I mean, over the last, year, especially 6 months, sleep and prioritizing my compound lifting, not only has it just dramatically impacted my ability to handle stress and like be energized, but like it's changing my strength and my body from kind of all around. It's just changing my look a little bit, and it's just making me stronger everywhere. And I'll tell you this much, man. I don't know if there's any science to this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. On the days where I'm compound lifting very aggressively with a lot of weight, I sleep like a baby. I mean, it just wears me out. And it's almost like they work in tandem, dude. Like when I work that hard and then I sleep 7 hours, oh my gosh, I feel incredible. I mean, it's great.
Gosh, Michael, that's a really good point. 100%, because we're talking about optimizing and balancing hormones here. Those particular lifts will absolutely contribute to restorative sleep because they short term, they bump up your testosterone. So if you're like dealing with, man, lower T or testosterone cortisol ratios, probably most people, if I would say everyone on this call is dealing with excessively high cortisol because of all the stress that we talked about. Okay, well then when you bump up your testosterone a little bit, that's going to combat that cortisol and allow better restorative sleep. 100%. My wife was told by me that she had a structure, a genetic structure that really wasn't conducive for certain athletic endeavors that she wanted to participate in. It just wasn't. I wanted her to win. I'm like, hey, your structure. By squatting and deadlifting, she changed literally the structure of her body. That's how profound those lifts are.
That's awesome. That's cool.
Yeah. So when I hear you say that you're seeing things happen in your physique, but also in your sleep and just everyday life from growing those lifts at 100%. We talk about this in depth this weekend. So absolutely.
Awesome. It's awesome.
Team, guys, that's all that I have. I wanted to allow an extra few minutes. I imagine maybe there's some Q&A that people have so that you guys get the most value. So I'm going to open up for questions. And if there are not any, then I will let you guys get to bed. So if you need
and I'll say this, guys, in my, my journey over the last, 13 years as entrepreneur, business person, whatever, eliminating stress and creating time in my life, my day to keep these things low and at bay is a game changer. I mean, if I didn't have my time where I'm trying to keep noise out and keep my peace and aligned with God and everything in my life, I would have a hard time. I don't know if I could handle it. And that's dedicated, concentrated effort every morning of my life. Now, I don't hit every day, but I'm 5 days a week, 6 days a week for sure. And like Jesse said on the first point, finding a way to cut stress down 30%, that right there could be the sauce. I mean, just quiet time in the morning and making it a priority is so critical. So Jesse, Aaron says, I'm interested in more info on the clinic, please.
Okay, cool. Aaron, if you just want to message me, here, I'll just put my number here and you guys can message me if you're interested, and just let me know who you are and I'll send that. That's in Plainfield, Indiana.
Awesome.
Michael, another big thing that you do that I've noticed that just kind of brought top of mind, which I actually don't like, but it's so important, is a lot of times you prioritize relaxation. Like when we get together, I want to like talk about like these worldly, like deep, and you're like, Rod, I just want to relax, man.
Yeah, right.
But that is super, like we talk about sympathetic nervous system parasympathetic. That's how you're keeping the stress low. You're like, hey, I just want to talk about like who's better, LeBron or Jordan. I don't want to. That's super important, and that's something that I'm starting to get a little bit now as I hang out with you guys, with you a lot more, and dive into this data. Is maybe at the end of the night, it's not the time to have like these crazy, challenging conversations. I love those, but again, you've got to look at like, sympathetic nervous system. It's just been go, go, go. Maybe this isn't a good time to have like the great debate with your friends. Maybe it's time to enjoy their peace and calm in company.
Yeah, dude. No, it's big. I love it. I agree. And it helps immensely because I do love hanging out with my friends.
Yeah.
And being in their company. And sometimes I enjoy just talking about nothing. Like it's just like, this has been, right. I love this cigar. What a great cigar.
Right. Right. Well, and actually another thing I didn't put in here, this is a super important point, and I was dead set against this point because I always want to be deep and have, a debate and learn and all that. But laughter, a lot of times if you're debating a point or something, there's not a whole lot of laughter going on. You know what I mean? And I noticed that's one thing when you just say, we're just gonna have a chill night And we're just gonna be humorous, and we're not gonna talk about deep. We're not gonna talk about right and left wing activities and what shooting was where. We're just gonna sit around the campfire as family or whatnot, and just share some funny stories or whatnot. But laughter is an absolutely huge stress relief. There's data on that. People that laugh live longer, have higher testosterone. You can find tons of data on that.
I love it. Aaron said that this was a killer segment, that we aren't worth anything to anyone without internal self-improvement. So excellent work there, Jesse. This is great because this is a lot of stuff that people just don't know a lot about. And I believe that it certainly can help us in many ways. So good stuff, man.
Awesome. Well, guys, if any of you have questions or you want to dig deeper, I put my number there in the chat. I could recommend some clinics. I think that we've given you enough to do. I don't think any of you need to go run and do blood work tomorrow or run to a clinic or anything like that. I think if you just implement this, give it 4 to 6 weeks, and then see how your symptoms are doing. So I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody logging on. And this is kind of a good sneak peek of what you'll be seeing to come. Michael and I said we want to get a lot more granular on the business side of things, the health and fitness side of things, so that you guys can get out there and just make a huge difference in the world. So thanks for joining us tonight.
Love it, man. Have a great week, guys.
See you guys.
See ya.